Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics on one of the unofficial state holidays, Deer Season Weekend. And we're very excited and very honored to be joined by the president of Missouri State University. Mr. Smart, welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thanks, Scott. Happy to be here.
We're thrilled to have you because we like to talk about good news. A lot of things are going right at Missouri State.
They are.
Give me a list of some of the 2 or 3 things that are going right that every person watching this show across the state should be excited about.
Well, the first thing is we've blown it up in enrollment. We're up 3,000 students in the last 6 years. We're on a 6-year growth trend, setting records every single year. And I think that's a great indication that people want to come to school here. We're doing something right. We've worked really hard to bring our facilities up to speed. Some of our academic buildings were frankly out of date and old and a little bit dilapidated, and so we just opened a brand new addition renovation of Glass Hall, which houses our School of Business. We've completely retooled Ellis Hall, which houses our music program, which frankly the band and chorale and a variety of things do really tremendous work. We're building a new health center for students, for medical care on campus. We've built a new welcome center, and so all of that thing is really good. And you know, I think one of the reasons students are coming to us is the affordability piece, and I know we'll talk a little bit about that later. And so we're very proud of having raised tuition less than inflation over the last 8 years. And you put all those things together, our students have really developed a pride in the campus, and we've become a first choice school instead of a third or a fourth option.
So things are going right. I think everybody that observes state politics or academics sees the success. What has been the things that have made that success possible?
I think there's no question that our ability to be very efficient with our money and to be able to hold tuition down makes us we call it a value option. And so when you can get a great college experience and pay significantly less than other universities in Missouri and in the surrounding states, then more and more people are starting to look at us. We have students from every county in Missouri attending this year. 85% of our students come from Missouri, and we've been able to have that big college experience, but with a smaller community family feel. And our students have really seen there's at least a group of students that are looking for that.
And a lot of the growth is not just Missouri kids. These are kids you're bringing in from out of state.
We are, particularly Illinois. That's our biggest group of students coming in from Illinois, frankly, because Illinois has really priced themselves very high in terms of going to not just the University of Illinois, but Illinois State and Southern Illinois, significantly more expensive than many of the Missouri schools.
So when we talk about funding, though, there's been several years now where when the state budget has a shortfall, higher ed just gets a cut. You have to negotiate how big.
Right.
How big have those cuts been the last few years?
So in FY 2009, we got $90 million, Missouri State did, from state appropriations. This year, we're at 83.4.
Wow.
So significantly down. That doesn't factor in. There was inflation over that period of time. Last year, we took about a $6.5 million cut after taking about a $9 million withhold. And so in the year that we're in, we've had to figure out how to manage with about $16 million less.
Tell me why a guy that may be sitting in his deer stand this weekend watching this on his phone, tell me why that matters to a regular Missourian.
Because at some point, there's nothing left to cut to deliver a quality education. And so then if the state is going to fund that less and less and less and less, the only way to recoup that money and make payroll and deliver the services that students need and want to be successful, then tuition and fees are going to go up. And I think all of us have an interest in turning out an educated workforce, whether it's a 2-year degree at community college, whether it's a certificate to go into advanced manufacturing, whether it's a 4-year degree, a master's degree, a doctorate degree, a professional degree. You know, 2/3 of the new jobs require some kind of 4-year degree. Almost all of them require some post-high school credential, and we can't price people out of that. Ultimately, it'll hurt the economic development of our state.
So when they just start talking about budget cuts to higher ed off the top, that number may start at 9. The reason it comes down to 4, wherever it is you've had to lead the charge. Missouri State has. University of Missouri's went through some tough times, but they're making a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Dr. Choi's is really come in, I think, with a really new look. Do you have a real partner there that can sit at the table and can the legislature can trust beside yourself to fight to keep some of that money?
I think Missouri's made, the University of Missouri has made some really good decisions this year as they work on the affordability piece. We've been the leader in affordability forever, and I think they've said, hey, we need to look at that and make sure the flagship university is also affordable for residents of Missouri. And I've had multiple interactions with Dr. Choi this year. We're certainly working on expanding the collaborative engineering program. Frankly, the University of Missouri needs to be the leader in higher education in our state. We want to be a good partner with them. You're right, during that period of time, I was the president of the Higher Ed Association, and I kind of had some responsibility on advocating generally for higher education, and I'm certainly glad that the University of Missouri.
Do you think they're going for being a liability in your efforts to partner?
I do.
It's an interesting thing, too. One of Springfield's leading citizens, Jeff Roorda, with connections to several people throughout the state, is now in the University of Missouri Curators. Is that a way to foster some good relationships?
You know, I see Jeff a lot. He's a Missouri State grad and a good friend, and you're right, a leader in our community and certainly has the governor's ear. And so I do think that there's an interest among the University of Missouri and Missouri State and the regional universities as well, working together this year on higher education funding, because frankly, it's going to be critical.
So there's always been an interesting thing throughout the state of Missouri politics. It's really been brought to light in maybe the last couple of decades. But if you're somebody watching this program on MediaCom down in Springfield, you have a Supreme Court that is exclusively of Northern Missourians. If you can't walk to I-70 in a day's time, you're not on the Supreme Court probably. You got a Public Service Commission. The southernmost Public Service Commissioner in this state can drive to Iowa before he can drive to Steele, Missouri, down the Boot Hill. And you look at the way that the state of Missouri funds college education on per student basis, you have the bottom three, including Missouri State, of state appropriations per student, are all in southern Missouri.
Yeah.
Is it a systemic problem that needs to be looked at?
I do think, you know, historically the cuts have been across the board. And so the year that we're in, everybody got a 6.5% cut, everybody got a 2.5% withhold. That has different impacts at different universities. We get from the state $4,600 per student to help fund education. Missouri Southern and SEMO are the next two. They get about $5,000. The average in America is $7,000. Yeah. And so there are universities in our state that are getting over $8,000 per student. And so it's more challenging for those of us at the bottom that have experienced growth. And so we're educating 3,000 more students with $9 million less. And so that becomes a challenge.
At what point do you think changes that? I mean, is that just something that people just need to talk more about?
You know, we had moved into a performance funding model the last 3 or 4 years that had a 10% component of equity. And so those southern schools benefited from that. I would hope in the new performance funding model, at least that amount of percentage of the formula is going to include equity so that over time we can narrow that gap.
You know, one of the things I think was so interesting and such a proud moment for the state of Missouri is when the Missouri State University chorale sang at the inauguration. You had Roy Blunt leading it, and you had your chorale there singing, and it got national attention.
It was phenomenal. 40 million people probably around the world watched that. It was maybe the highest profile event that the university was involved in since I've been president. And just as an American, to be there and witness that, the peaceful transition of power, is phenomenal. I was really proud of our chorale for, they sang a song about unity, which I thought hit the perfect tone of that event, right, just as Senator Blunt had that same theme throughout the inauguration. And you know, that high profile event has led to invitations for the chorale to perform at other significant events in the United States, and this next summer they will be the only American college choir invited to perform in the top music festival in China in Shanghai. And so that, not only was that a tremendous event for the university and for those students who will remember it forever, but it's led to other incredible opportunities.
Well, we hope as the next legislative session starts, the budget will be a big issue. You'll come back and share your thoughts about the process on This Week in Missouri Politics.
I'd love to, Scott. Thanks for the opportunity.
You bet. We'll be right back with Missouri State grad Joe Lakin on the Opinion Maker panel after this.
In 2008, Republic Services acquired the Bridgeton landfill in a merger. Since then, we've invested $200 million to clean up the site and to maintain environmental compliance. We do that while staffing the facility 24/7. That's because we support permanent solutions that are safe for our neighbors and clean up the environment. We're committed to doing what's right. That's what drives us every day. We're a part of the community, and we are here for the long haul. Republic Services. We'll handle it from here.
My name is Eric Philippi. I'm a veteran, a carpenter, and a father. When Eric Greitens said he was going to change politics as usual, folks like me didn't think the first thing he'd do as governor was take dead aim at our jobs and our families' livelihoods by working to repeal prevailing wage. Call Governor Greitens. Tell him to protect prevailing wage and to protect my family, not destroy it.
At Ameren, Missouri, we believe in the power of light. It makes scary stories less scary, and nighttime adventures more likely to last the night. A bright enough light can illuminate opportunities to affect positive change, neighborhoods that need a helping hand, and the advancements needed to ensure tomorrow is a little cleaner than today. Transforming the future of our community by shining light in every direction. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. We're joined by our winner's opinion maker panel, Jeff Roorda, fresh off his big win this week. For those that don't know, that don't watch CNN, the business manager for the St. Louis City Police Union, candidate for county executive in Jefferson County. Welcome.
Can't wait to be here talking about these issues.
I bet this week for sure. Sam Gladney, Democrat, running for state rep here in Clayton, Missouri, right?
I am. Thanks for having me.
Good to be on. Kristian Starner, first time on the show. Thank you so much for being here. Affiliated with Axiom Strategies. Glad to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
And friend of the show, Joe Lakin, another part of the winner panel. Won the big race in the 8th. Tell us about why Mike Searpoy won what was a very interesting race.
I think a variety of things. I think, one, he represented the voters in the district. Two, he ran an exceptionally hard-fought campaign. And three, I think he had a tough message that cut through to voters and a tough environment nationally for Republicans.
So, very interesting thing. You have a district that's a Republican district. I mean, frankly, it's the Republican district in Jackson County, the only one that is Republican.
Right.
Jacob Turk put on the ballot by Democrats. You've had some folks say it was a dirty race. I don't see what the Democrats said is dirty. I don't see Searpoy getting help from PACs as dirty. I see both sides using what's a convoluted system to fight as hard as they could for their candidates.
Yeah, look, I think you look at these special elections, and the key when you have your party in the White House is to motivate your voters to show up. I think what they did, if there was anything dirty, I think it was putting a dark horse candidate in the race to try to be a spoiler. But at the end of the day, I think what they did actually became a rallying cry for Republicans in the district and ultimately cost them the race.
Sam Gladney, I think Hillary Shields was a good candidate. I think you're going to see her name on a ballot in the future. I think if she would have won, she would have done Jackson County voters proud in the state Senate. I think everything she did to fight for her side, whether it was help Jacob Turk or whatever, was just fighting hard. Just like using the laws with the PACs and the Amendment 2 and those laws to fight for the Searpoy side. I thought both sides were aggressive. Isn't that what you want to see? Is people fighting for what they believe in?
I think you should fight for what you believe in. Well, one of the things I take exception to a little bit in that race is the language surrounding St. Louis riots. I don't think there were riots in St. Louis. I think there were this time around. I think there was, there were some folks that were upset, and a couple of months ago there were a few instances of some broken windows that the people involved with that, all of the people with those protests condemned that immediately. I don't think that sort of rhetoric is helpful to getting things done. I don't think it gets us to where we need to be. So that's the biggest part of that race that I take exception to. But Hillary Shields was certainly a fantastic candidate, and she'll be on the ballot again.
Kristian Starner, you know Jackson County, and you know Mike Searpoy. Is there a person in the entire legislature with more integrity than Mike Searpoy?
I don't think so. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Mike, both as a friend and as a senator. What I think is interesting about the special election is that it really taught Republicans and taught our group of how we're going to operate in a post-Amendment 2 world. But yeah, we're really great to have, or really thankful to have Mike.
Jeff Roorda, it was interesting. You had Mike Searboy making a major part of his campaign law and order. No bones about it. He didn't mince words. He came right out and said, I'm going to back the cops. You're seeing that not only in St. Louis with Prop P, your Prop P, which we'll talk about in a second. You're seeing it in Kansas City.
Well, that's the environment. I mean, it's a strong issue for Republicans. It's for Donald Trump is the thing that's saving him more than anything is his tough on crime stance. But I got to tell you, I served with Mike Searboy in the House. He was one of my favorite Republicans I served with. He'll make an even better senator because he's an independent thinker and he's fiercely independent, and he'll be great over there.
So you've been in campaigns, good ones, tough ones, easy ones. I thought that the Democrats did a heck of a job. They took advantage of the rules. I think if the Republicans want to be mad at anybody, it should be Jacob Turk for letting him be used by the Democrats. I thought the Republicans did everything they could do from the PACs. It was all legal. I think that's what you want to see in Missouri is both parties firing on all cylinders, competing in every district.
Yeah, I wonder a little bit, though, if the Democrats over there didn't overplay their hand. You know, there's a lot of political science data that says that third-party candidates hurt the Democrat more than they do the Republican. And particularly when you've got a Republican in the White House, you want to get the anti-Republican vote, and to split that with another candidate, maybe the outcome's a little different if there's not a third-party candidate there.
Let's talk about something that I was very glad you were on the show this week. You were the leading person behind Prop P in the city. For those folks that aren't in St. Louis City, the county voted overwhelmingly for a sales tax to pay their cops more. The city followed up this past Tuesday. It was a vote to pay cops more. And you would think in the city of St. Louis, with everything that's went on, if all you did was read the media coverage, you would assume this would have went down 60-40. Instead, it passed 60-40. Why?
Because voters in St. Louis understand that they need a safe city to do business in, to live in, to work in. And, the numbers in North St. Louis are the most telling.
Yeah.
We didn't lose a single ward in North St. Louis. 54% plus voted yes on this issue in North St. Louis, and 60% overall is a landslide. I mean, just to put it in presidential politics terms, to get the 60% nationally, you got to win every state. Nixon got 60.2 in 1972 and won in every state but Massachusetts. That's how big a landslide this was.
Sam Gladney, you're running in the county. They voted overwhelmingly for Prop P. The city voters, they're not the loudest, but do you think there's a silent majority of Democrats that are supporting law enforcement?
I don't think it's a question of supporting law enforcement or supporting protesters. I support them both, and I think most of us do. I think we respect the First Amendment and the fact that we have a lot of people in our community who feel marginalized and feel like they're not listened to. On the same time, I think that everybody deserves a raise in the state. That's why I support raising the minimum wage with Raise Up Missouri. That's why I support paying our police officers more, our fire department more. We can have both a reform conversation and make sure people are making more money. I don't see that as an either-or thing. My one issue with Prop P is that it was done with a sales tax. The sales tax traditionally hurts the poorest among us. I love the fact that they're making more money. I think everybody should make more. I wish we could have found another way to do it, but I have no problem with police officers making more money. Let's talk reform next.
Joe Lakin, is there a part of this state anywhere that's not pro-law enforcement right now?
No. I mean, we started Mike's campaign, and really if you look at everything we did, there are two issues we talked about. One, the Missouri income tax cut was a very potent message, but chief among the messages we talked about was supporting law enforcement, getting them the tools they needed to protect our families, our communities, and I think probably just as importantly themselves. And so, look, I think this is going to continue to be an issue. I know our campaign took criticism for it, but the voters overwhelmingly responded to that message.
Kristian Starner, I mean, is there any corner of this state right now that's not a law and order corner of the state?
Well, no, I don't think so.
Maybe some newsrooms.
Yeah, potentially. I will say, looking at it from the outside, Prop P is just a huge win for Mayor Kristian, especially given that, she's only been in office since April. So I was really impressed with it from that standpoint.
Jeff Roorda, I say kudos to Mayor Kristian. It should probably, most folks would assume, an easy thing for her. May not have been. She ran out when there's a lot of folks that thought this would fail. She was out campaigning hard, and I saw a handshake between the two of you. Anything we should know about that?
Well, you know, we were on the same side on this. You know, we've had a rocky start with this mayor's administration. I don't think that's a secret, but we hope this is a prelude to a better relationship and to more collaboration. You know, we talk about reform. How do we reform the police department when we're 130, 140 officers down? We can't engage in community relations. We can't get more training for our guys, which the protesters are calling for. All we can do is answer the priority calls.
Are you going to be able to do some of that now?
Yes, absolutely, we will.
Outstanding. Let's talk about a big night for Democrats, Sam Gladney, nationally. Outside of southeastern Kansas City or Jackson County, you had a big night for Democrats all over. What is that? There's some February special elections, one in the Fitzwater district, not a gimme for Republicans, historically been Democratic even. But now you have across, what does this mean for Claire McCaskill and folks running? When you look at Virginia, that was as big a win as you could ever have.
I think there's a lot of enthusiasm on the Democratic side right now, and there is because things are going in the wrong direction. You know, we have unified Republican control in the state and in the country, and if you like what government's doing, then you should probably vote for more Republicans. If you don't like what they're doing, you should probably go another direction. I think there are a lot of people that have that thought right now. Claire McCaskill has been out there talking to people in every community, talking to people who vote for, talking to people who don't vote for. Josh Hawley has not been doing that. I think that she is going to be very tough to beat, and I think he's got everything he can handle, and we know that.
Jeff Roorda, you've heard that exact same argument when Barack Obama was in the White House. Right. Does that change the headwinds that much?
Well, I mean, I thought maybe it did, and then I saw these returns in New Jersey and Virginia, and it's really harder tonight, even in Mike's race, Mike Searpoy's race. I mean, he won by 7-8%. What did Donald Trump win there with? 30%?
Sure.
I mean, you're seeing huge swings between what happened just a year ago and what's happening today. And if I were Republicans, particularly legislative Republicans in Missouri, I'd be concerned.
Let me ask you, somebody that's actually been on the ballot there, is that indicative of the policies or just the fact that whoever's in charge is not popular?
It's indicative of how fickle voters are. I mean, there's buyer's remorse both ways.
Joe Lakin, you have to look at Virginia, and it's not good news for Republicans, right?
No, it certainly isn't. And I said yesterday on the Missouri Times podcast, candidates matter, campaigns matter, and issues matter. And I think you have to get all three of those right. But, I think you look at these February special elections, I think the worst news for Missouri Democrats is that Brett Dinkins is moving from Lee Summit back home to Annapolis to run
Shout
Chris
out to Brett
Dinkins'
Dinkins,
race.
what a great campaign.
I mean, ran a fantastic race in Jackson County. He's going down to help on his mom's race. Look, the Missouri HRCC, Robert Nodell and Casey Wheat now leading that fight. Look, I think we're going to have another successful night in February, and look, I think Claire McCaskill is finally going to get sent back in next November.
Kristian Starner, just Missouri State graduate name drop day with Casey Wheat. What do you think about that? What do you think these elections mean for Missouri?
And I think nationally what happened, while it is a little bit concerning for Republicans, I think the fact of the matter still remains is that Trump still has a high approval rating in a lot of outstate Missouri and in these rural districts. And so when you're looking at these special elections in February with down in Iron County, which we discussed, I'm not real sure when Carroll County will be called, but that will be coming up. Jefferson County as well. And so you got to look at those numbers still. And so while there were a little bit of problems at the national level, I think that in a lot of these smaller rural outstate Missouri districts, you're still having
Jeff race will be very interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's talk about with this in this interesting environment leading into 2018. What's an issue in the legislative session that you got your eye on?
So since last session in the interim, I have been driving all around the state, meeting with legislators and working on activating grassroots groups on school choice issues. So mainly working on charter school expansion and education savings accounts. I think last week alone, I drove over 800 miles. Met with 15 legislators and really working the ground game. I feel like I can say with confidence that the next primary, that education school choice will be what separates Republicans.
What's an issue we're going to see coming out of this in session?
Yeah, I started in politics in 2008, and the utility issue was a hot issue already. It's now 2017. We're still talking about utility issues. I think grid modernization is going to point to 2018 as the year that it finally gets across the finish line.
It's an issue, I think, in the next legislative session.
Well, after we beat back right to work, if they try to come after prevailing wage, that'll be a big issue, and as well as protecting reproductive freedom. If they come after that, we're going to have to stand tall on both of those.
Jeff Roorda, you've actually sat in those seats and pushed those buttons. What do you think happens next session?
Republicans and Democrats ought to both be smart enough to ride this blue wave, finally pass a police officer's Bill of Rights in this state as they've done in so many other states. Governor Greitens should highlight it in his State of the State address.
So, I mean, that seems like something that should easily pass that legislation. I've heard people in St. Louis talk about why the frustration that Jeff City does not address issues that the protesters are bringing up, and I always say, you don't want that group of legislators to address your issues. You won't like the outcome. What's the chances that actually gets done this session?
I think it's good. If they're smart politically, they'll push it hard.
Does that get done this session?
I'm not sure.
Is there any reason that doesn't get done this session?
I don't see why not.
Look, I think the police officers are well positioned in the legislature, so I think it's very possible.
I think that does. I think that does. Let's get a prediction out of you. You've actually sat in the chair beside the guy calling the bills of it and the floor leader. Another issue coming up would be rural broadband. Is this a year for that?
Yeah, I think so.
What do you think?
I think so. It's the governor's working on it, and it seems like it's getting a lot more support. So yeah.
So I'm glad that you're one of the newer Democrats that has that's very familiar with rural Missouri. Is rural broadband a way that you actually do bring the whole state together?
Absolutely. That's something we have to push across the board. There are too many issues where right now we fight each other where we shouldn't be fighting. This is not one of them. This is a solutions thing that is good for the state. It improves education and quality of life for everybody.
People talk about education reform. There's probably nothing that'd be more impactful to education reform than rural broadband.
Absolutely. We need it.
Jeff Roorda, with a minute left, who won the week?
Well, you expect me to say cops, but I'm going to say the St. Louis economy. $500,000 nearly dumped in by St. Louis businesses to pass Prop P because they knew they had investment to protect, and if we didn't put more cops in the streets, they were going to lose that investment and walk.
Who won the week?
I'm going to cheat and give you two. One, because I'm an Army veteran, I'm going to tell you that today is Veterans Day, so the veterans won the week. Second, I'm going to say that all of the women who have come forward against, in the past, Harvey Weinstein, and then this week against Roy Moore, and then also against Louis C.K., these women need to know that we support them, that they're courageous, and we're with them.
Who won the week?
I think it goes without saying that Mike Searpoy won the week, but I think a very close second would be Senate Republicans for helping cinch that win for him.
Who won the week?
My good friend, Senator-elect Mike Searpoy.
He had a great week. I want to say one of our panelists won the week, Jeff Roorda. You had a very good week, sir. Congratulations. I want to also, I think on behalf of everybody here, thank our veterans. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your service, and we will see you next week on This Week in Missouri Politics. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.